This is the first production model of Hyundai's electric sub-brand called Ioniq. And in this video, we're going to talk about what's going on with some of the spec and tech and pricing of the new Ioniq 5. And then I'll share my thoughts on this super funky design. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's Sketch Monkey here. Now, one of the most common concerns about EVs as daily drivers is the charging speed and the range anxiety. Well, Hyundai has taken this into consideration, and the Ioniq 5 features an 800 volt system that should allow for pretty fast charging. The 5 can be charged from 5 to 80% in just 18 minutes, but it has to be plugged into a 350 kilowatt hour fast charger, and on top of that, it has a pretty decent range as well at about 280 miles. And this is an estimate. We never know really what the range will be with these EVs until they come out and we can actually test the range in real life. It will be available in both rear and all-wheel drive with 2 power options, and the base model makes 215 horsepower, while the performance version gets almost an additional 100 horses and bumps the power up to 302 horsepower. So, what about the speed here? Is this a quick little thing? Well, with the rear wheel drive, you get 215 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. And this should give the Ioniq a 0 to 60 speed in 7.4 seconds. And this is according to Hyundai. So as same thing here, it has to be tested in real life to see if these numbers are accurate. While the all-wheel drive though, with 315 horsepower and a massive 446 pound-feet of torque, is obviously quite a lot quicker, and will do the same sprint in just 5.2 seconds. Not bad. It's similar to the Tesla Model 3 SR Plus, and the price for the Ioniq 5 is about $45,000 for the base model. Now, what's interesting about the inside is the amount of space you get in such a small package. The wheelbase is longer than the 3-row SUV Hyundai Palisade, and this is of course thanks to it being 100% electric. This means that the designers and engineers, they get a lot more freedom to work on proportions and interior space without the restrictions you get with a package of ICE cars. And this brings me to the overall design of the Ioniq 5. So we're going to jump into Photoshop now, talk about the front, the side, and the rear, and my thoughts on this awesome looking design. Let's have a look at the rear of this car right here. I love this design, in case you hadn't noticed that yet throughout this video. But what I love about it is it's a brand new style for Hyundai. If we go back just a couple of years, they used to be very organic, very soft, almost melted cheese just 5 years ago. But now this is super sharp and a fresh approach to their new design language. Even though this is the Ioniq, the sub-brand of Hyundai, you still see the same kind of lines and design in, for example, the Hyundai Elantra. The thing I like about the rear here is that the rear, when we're going to look at the front, you're going to see that the rear design and graphic, it matches the front in a very cool way. This part right here is almost the same, except for in the rear, of course, you have red lights, but the LEDs and everything, the graphical features and the housing of the lights and the light bar that goes right here with all these tiny LEDs in the middle, you have the same kind of treatment in the front, but then you have the lights on this part right here instead of being in between the lights. I'm going to show you that when we talk about the front view in just a second here. Overall though, the design of this car is, to me, a flashback to the 80s. These things right here, I just love these things because they remind me of the first Nintendo, the console, and almost like Atari-like feeling to this design. And that in combination with these pixelated LEDs, it almost gives it almost like a cyberpunk feel over this design. And these wheels, just beautiful looking wheels that I think fit the overall theme of the design. Package of the car, if we look at the side view right here, it feels like a mix between a modernized Golf, early generation Golf, because we have the typical Golf C-pillar right here, which is very thick, and this is one of the trademarks of any Golf. So you have that C-pillar here in this car as well. So it's a mix between a Golf and a Lancia Delta Integrale in some way. The packaging of the car just feels like a modernized mix of those two cars. Now I want to talk about the main key line that we have right here, and that is this shoulder line. We have the shoulder line going right here, and it's a straight line, beautifully made like that. And then we have this new line that is typical for Hyundai right now, which in this case, I think they made it a lot cooler than they did in the Hyundai Elantra, for the 2021 Elantra, because the reason for that is, in the Elantra, I made a video on that, and where you have this point on the Elantra, it almost cuts right here. So you have this same point that we have right here, where these two lines meet. It's further back and almost in the middle of the car on the Elantra, and that creates a very static looking design, since these two lines are the two main graphical features of the car in the side. If you have it in the middle of the car, it's going to create a balance, so there's no movement either forward or back. So I'm glad that they pushed this corner forward to almost being right underneath the start of the A-pillar. What that does, it gives it this forward motion. This is almost like an arrow here pointing forward, and it gives it even though it's not a very emotional design, it still gives it this feeling of moving forward when it's standing still. So that's a very cool feature. I think it's a lot better integrated here than they did on the Elantra. The thing with EVs these days is I think a lot of the new EVs that come out, they lack this emotional design, and it feels like they hired some product designers or industrial designers to make the cars, and that's not a bad thing. You create cars that look like this, and you have the Polestar as well, which has this very producty feel to them, because you see these lines right here, these graphical features down here. I love them. It suits this car so well, but it's also not very automotive. And the same thing goes for the main lines. It's a lot of straight angles everywhere. There are no curvatures right here or over here that creates this organic feeling that we're kind of used to seeing in car design. So this is an interesting new era. And also, when you have an EV, what creates this massive space inside is that we have a platform down here with batteries, as you know, and what that does means that you can move the wheels out further almost in the corners of the cars, so we don't have to have huge overhangs in the rear right here or in the front. And what this does is it creates this entire room right here can be completely filled with interior space, and it gives a small package like this a lot more space than if it was a regular ICE car. So let's have a look at the front here lastly. So as I said, you can see the rear. Let's have a look at the rear. See, look at this graphic right here and how that is translated, or how the front is translated to the rear and vice versa. You have the same kind of line right here that goes, and all of these tiny things here, this chamfer, this entire chamfer that you see here is lit up. So it's a lot of small LEDs, and it just looks cool. And then on top of that, you have these very basic, very simple geometry looking headlights that just adds to the product design feel, and also I think adds to the futurism of the Ioniq brand and the design of this car. Because as I've said a lot of times before, we're moving towards the car design that has a lot more to do with the graphic design and less to do with style, overstyling and emotion in the design. I feel like that's where we're headed, and this is a typical example of that. We have a very strong front graphic that is going to be instantly recognizable as an Ioniq. But then again, if you look at the other Ioniq concepts, they have a completely different design language than this. And that's what I've said before as well. If you want to be a car designer these days, I feel like Asia is the place to go, because they seem to have so much fun creating all of these concepts. Not just the Ioniq 5, but then you have the black sculpture or super organic EV of Ioniq. I can't remember what it's called. I'm going to put up a photo of it right here, and I made a video on that as well on the Sketch Monkey channel if you want to go and check that out. But that's what I think about the Ioniq 5. I really love the overall design of this thing. I think Ioniq is on point when it comes to mixing some product design feel, some retro, and also a lot of futurism by using this pixelated graphics in all of the lighting features that is in this car. So well done, Ioniq. I can't wait to see the rest of the cars that these guys are going to produce, and also how this will affect the rest of the industry when other brands come out with their electric cars, and how that will affect the overall design language compared to the regular ICE cars. So that's going to be interesting to see. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the Ioniq 5. Do you like it, or do you think it's almost too simplistic or too sterile in the approach of the car? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.